Welcome to day 52 of reading for 30 minutes every single day for the rest of my life. We are at page 100 of The Fellowship of the Ring. I'm going to get 30 minutes started right now. Get the show on the road. 30 minutes starting now. Let's go! Before long the wood came to a sudden end. Wide grassland stretched before them. They now saw that they had, in fact, turned too much to the south. Away over the flats they could glimpse the low hill of Buckleberry across the river, but it was now to their left, creeping cautiously out from the edge of the trees. They set off across the open as well as they could. At first they felt afraid, away from the shelter of the wood. Far back behind them stood the high place where they had breakfasted. Frodo half expected to see the small distant figure of a horseman on the ridge dark against the sky, but there was no sign of one. The sun, escaping from the breaking clouds as it sank towards the hills they had left, was now shining brightly again. Their fear left them, though they still felt uneasy. But the land became steadily more tame and well-ordered. Hedges and gates and dikes for drainage. Everything seemed quiet and peaceful, just an ordinary corner of the Shire. Their spirits rose with every step. The line of the river grew nearer, and the black riders began to seem like phantoms of the wood now left far behind. They passed along the edge of the huge turnip field and came to the stout gate. Beyond it, a rutted lane ran between low, well-laid hedges toward a distant clump of trees. Pippin stopped. "I know these fields and this gate," he said. "This is Bumferlong, old Farmer Maggot's land. That's his farm away there in the trees. One trouble after another," said Frodo, looking nearly as much as alarmed as if Pippin had declared the lane was the slot leading to the dragon's den. The others looked at him in surprise. "What's wrong with the old Maggot?" said Pippin. "He's a good friend to all the Brandybucks. Of course he's a terror to trespassers and keep ferocious dogs, but after all, folk down here are near the border and have to be more on their guard." "I know," said Frodo, "but all the same," he added with a shamefaced laugh, "I'm terrified of him and his dogs. I have avoided his farm for years and years. He caught me several times trespassing after mushrooms when I was a youngster at Brandy Hall. On the last occasion he beat me and then took me and showed me to his dogs. 'See, lads,' he said, 'next time his young varmint sets foot on my land, you can beat him. You can eat him. Now see him off.' They chased me all the way to the ferry. I have never got over the fright, though I dare say the beasts knew their business and would not really have touched me." Pippin laughed. "Well, it's time you made it up, especially if you are coming back to live in Buckland. Old Maggot is a really stout fellow if you leave his mushrooms alone. Let's get into the lane, and then we shan't be passing. If we meet him, I'll do the talking. He is a friend of Mary's, and I used to come up here with a good deal at one time." They went along the lane until they saw the thatched roofs of the large house and farm buildings peeping out amongst the ahead. The Maggots and the Puddificks of stock, and most of the inhabitants of the Marish were house dwellers, and his farm was stoutly built of brick and had a high wall all around it. There was a wide wooden gate opening out of the wall into the lane. Suddenly, as they drew nearer, a terrific bang and barking broke out, and a loud voice was heard shouting, "Grip, Fang, Wolf, come on, lads!" Frodo and Sam stopped dead, but Pippin walked on a few paces. The gate opened, and three huge dogs came pelting out into the lane, and dashed towards the travelers, barking fiercely. They took no notice of Pippin, but Sam shrank against the wall, while two wolvish-looking dogs sniffed at him suspiciously, and gnarled if he moved. The largest and most ferocious of the three halted in front of Frodo, bristling and growling. Through the gate there was now appeared a broad thick of hobbit, with a round face. "Hello, hello, and who you may be, and what may you be wanting?" he asked. "Good afternoon, Mr. Maggot," said Pippin. The farmer looked at him closely. "Well, if it isn't Master Pippin, Mr. Peregrine Took, I should say," he cried, changing from a scowl to a grin. "It's a long time since I saw you round here. It's lucky for you that I know you. I was just going to set out my dogs I was just going out to set my dogs out on any strangers. There are some funny things going on today. Of course, we do get queer folk wandering in these parts at times. Too near the river, he said, shaking his head. But this fellow was the most landish I have ever set my eyes on. He won't cross my land without leave a second time if I cannot stop it. I'm trying to look for something, guys. I'm gonna go change my laundry real quick. Let's see how fast I can do it. I'm back. I wonder how long that was. Damn. That was like, what? 2 minutes? 3 minutes? That's what I'm guessing. From how I'm feeling time right now. Okay. They asked anxiously for him to go on. Well, the farmer continued, approaching his point with slow relish, he came riding on a big black horse on his gate, in that big black horse in at the gate, which happened to be open and right up to my door. All black he was himself too, and cloaked and hooded up as if he did not want to be known. Now what in the Shire can he want? I thought to myself. We don't see many of the big folk over the border anyway. And anyway, I never heard of any like this black fellow. Good day to you, I say, as going to him. This lane doesn't lead anywhere, and wherever you may be going, your quickest way will be back to the road. I didn't like the looks of him, and when Grip came out, he took one sniff and let out a yelp as he had been stung. He put down his tail and bolted off howling. The black fellow sat quite still. I come from yonder, he said, slow and stiff, like pointing back west over my fields, if you please. Have you seen Baggins? He asked in a queer voice and bent down towards me. I could not see any face, for his hood fell down so low and it felt so short of a shiver down my back. But I did not see why he should come riding over my land so bold. Be off, I said. There are no Baggineses here. You are in the wrong part of the Shire. You had better go back to West Hobbiton. But you can go by road this time. Baggins has left, he answered in a whisper. He is coming. He is not far away. I wish to find him. If he passes, will you tell me? I will come back with gold. No, you won't, I said. You'll come back where you belong. Double quick. I give you 1 minute before I call my dogs. He gave a sort of a hiss. It might have been laughing, it might have been not. Then he spurred his great horse right at me, and I jumped out of the way only just in time. I called the dogs, but he swung off and rode through the gate and up the lane towards the causeway like a bolt of thunder. What do you think of that? Frodo sat for a moment looking at the fire, but only his thought was how on earth would they reach the ferry. I don't know what to think, he said at last. Then I tell you what to think, said Maggot. You should never have gone mixing up yourself with Hobbiton town folk. Mr. Frodo, folk are queer up there. Sam stirred in his chair and looked at the farmer with an unfriendly eye. But you were always a reckless lad. When I heard you had left the Brandybucks and gone off to that old Mr. Bilbo, I said that you were going to find trouble. Mark my words, this all comes to those strange doings of Mr. Bilbo's. His money was got in some of strange fashion in foreign parts, they say. Maybe there was some that they wanted to know what has become of the gold and jewels that he buried in the hill of Hobbiton, as I hear. Frodo said nothing. The shrewd guesses of the farmer were rather disconcerting. Well, Mr. Frodo, Maggot went on, I'm glad that you've had the sense to come back to Buckland. My advice is, stay there, and don't get mixed up with these outlandish folk. You'll have friends in these parts. If any of these black fellows came after you again, I'll deal with them. I'll say you're dead, or left the Shire, or anything you like. And that might be true enough, for as like as not it is old, for Mr. Bilbo they want news of. Maybe you're right, said Frodo, avoiding the farmer's eye and staring at the fire. Maggot looked at him thoughtfully. Well, I see you have any ideas of your own, he said. It is as plain as my nose that no accident brought you, that rider, here on the same afternoon, and maybe my news, no great news to you after all. I am not asking you to tell me anything you have to keep mine to yourself, but I see you are in some kind of trouble. Perhaps you are thinking it won't be easy to get to the ferry without being caught? I was thinking so, said Frodo, but we have got to try and get there, and it won't be done by sitting and thinking, so I'm afraid we must be going. Thank you so much indeed for your kindness. Thank you so much indeed for your kindness. I've been in terror of you and your dogs for over 30 years, Farmer Maggot. Though you may laugh to hear it, it's a pity, for I've missed a good friend. And now I'm sorry to leave so soon, but I'll come back, perhaps one day, if I get a chance. You'll be welcome when you come, said Maggot, but now I have a notion. It's near sundown already, and we are going to have our supper, for we mostly go to bed soon after the sun. If you and Mr. Peregrine and all could stay and have a bite with us, we would be pleased. So should we, said Frodo, but we must be going at once, I'm afraid. Even now it would be dark before we can reach the ferry. Ah, but wait a minute, I was going to say, after a bit of supper I'll get out a small wagon and drive you all to the ferry. That'll save you a good step, it might also give you trouble of another sort. Frodo now accepted the invitation gratefully, to the relief of Pippin and Sam. The sun was already behind the western hills, and the light was failing. 2 of Maggot's sons and his 3 daughters came in, and a generous supper was laid on the large table. The kitchen was lit with candles, and the fire was mended. Mrs. Maggot bustled in and out. 1 or 2 other hobbits belonging to the farmhouse came in. In a short while 14 sat down to eat. There was beer in plenty, and a mighty dish of mushrooms and bacon, besides much other solid farmhouse fare. The dogs lay by the fire and gnawed rinds and cracked bones. When they had finished, the farmer and his sons went out with a lantern and got the wagon ready. It was dark in the yard when the guests came out. They threw their packs on the board and climbed in. The farmer sat at the driving seat and whipped up 2 of his stout ponies. His wife stood in the light of the open door. You be careful of yourself, Maggot, she called. Don't go arguing with any foreigners, and come straight back. I will, said he, and drove out of the gate. There was now no breath of wild stirring. The night was still and quiet, and a chill was in the air. They went without lights and took it slowly. After a mile or 2, the lane came down to an end, crossing a deep dike and climbing a short slope up on a high-banked causeway. Maggot got down and took a good look either way, north and south, but nothing could be seen in the darkness. and there was not a sound in the still air. Thin strains of river mist were hanging above the dikes and crawling over the fields. It's going to be thick, said Maggot, but I'll not only light my lanterns till I turn for home. We'll hear anything on the road long before we'll meet it tonight. It was 5 miles or more from Maggot's Lane to the ferry. The hobbits wrapped themselves up, but their ears were strained for many sounds above the creak of the wheels and slow clop of the ponies' hoofs. The wagon seemed slower than a snail to Frodo. Beside him, Pippin was nodding towards sleep, but Sam was staring forward into the rising fog. They reached the entrance to the ferry lane at last. It was marked by two white posts that suddenly loomed over their right. Farmer Maggot drew on his ponies, and the wagon creaked to a halt. They were just beginning to scramble out, when suddenly they heard what had been all dreading hoofs in the road ahead. The sound was coming toward them. Maggot jumped down and stood holding the ponies' heads and peering forward into the gloom. Clip-clop came the approaching rider. The fall of the hoofs sounded loud in the still, foggy air. "You'd better be hidden, Mr. Frodo," said Sam anxiously. "You get down on the wagon and cover up with blankets, and we'll send this rider to the rightabouts." He climbed out and went to the farmer's side. Black riders would have to ride over him to get near the wagon. Clop, 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 clop. The rider was nearly on them. "Hello there," called Farmer Maggot. The advancing hoofs stopped short. They thought they could dimly guess a dark cloaked shape in the mist, a yard or two ahead. "Now then," said the farmer, throwing the reins of Sam and striding forward. Don't you come a step nearer. What do you want, and where are you going?" "I want Mr. Baggins. Have you seen him?" said a muffled voice, but the voice was the voice of Merry Brandybook. A dark lantern was uncovered, and its light fell on an astonished face of the farmer. "Mr. Merry!" he cried. "Yes, of course. Who did you think it was?" said Merry, coming forward. As he came out of the mist and their fear subsided, he seemed suddenly to diminish to ordinary hobbit size. He was riding a pony, and a scarf was swathed round his neck and over his chin to keep out the fog. Frodo sprang out of the wagon to greet him. "So there are you at last," said Merry. "I was beginning to wonder if you turn up at all today. I was just going back to supper. When it grew foggy, I came across and rode up toward Stock to see if you had fallen in any ditches. But I am blessed if I know which way you have come." "Where did you come, then, Mr. Baggett?" "In your duck pond." "No, I caught 'em trespassing," said the farmer. "I nearly set dogs on 'em, but they'll tell you all the story, I have no doubt. Now, if you'll excuse me, Mr. Merry, and Mr. Frodo and all, I'd best be turning for home. Mr. Maggot will not be worrying with the night getting thick." He backed the wagon into the lane and turned in. "Well, good night to you all," he said. "It's been a queer day, and no mistake, but all's well as ends well. All's well that ends well." Here, let me move the camera over here. All's well that ends well. All's well that ends well. Frodo sprang. "I want Mr. Baggins. Have you seen him?" said a muffled voice, but the voice was the voice of Merry Brandybook. Okay. Frodo sprang out of the wagon to greet him. "So there you are at last, Merry," said Merry. "I was beginning to wonder if you would turn up all day. I was just going back to supper. When it grew foggy..." He backed the wagon into the lane and turned in. "Well, good night to you." He lit his lanterns and got up. Suddenly, he produced a large basket from under the seat. "I was nearly forgotten," he said. "Mrs. Maggot put this up for Mr. Baggins with her compliments." He handed it down and moved off, followed by a chorus of thanks and good nights. "I was nearly forgetting," he said. "Mr. Maggot put this up for Mr. Baggins with her compliments." He handed it down and moved off, followed by a chorus of thanks and good nights. They wanted the pale rings of light round his lanterns as they dwindled into the foggy night. Suddenly Frodo laughed. From covered basket he held, the scent of mushrooms was rising. Chapter 5. A Conspiracy Unmasked. Now we had better get home ourselves, said Mary. There's something funny about all of this, I see, but it must wait till we get in. They turned down the fairy lane, which was straight and well kept, edged with large whitewashed stones. In 100 yards or so it brought them to the river bank, where there was a broad wooden landing stage, a large whitewashed stones. In 100 or so brought them to the near the water's edge glimmered in the light of the two lamps on high posts. Behind them the midst of the flat fields were now above the hedges, but the water before them was dark, and only a few curling wisps in a steam among the reeds of the bank. There seemed to be less fog on the further side. Mary led the pony over a gangway on the ferry, and the others followed. Mary then pushed slowly off the long pole. On the other side of the bank was steep, and up it a winding path. Hold on, I'm going to try to read this in my head. Winding path climbed from the further landing. And reading it in my head actually feels really nice. At last they came to a narrow gate in a thick hedge. Nothing could be seen of the house in the dark. It stood back
from the lane in the middle of a wide circle of lawn surrounded by a belt of low trees inside the outer edge. Frodo had chosen it because it stood in an out-of-the-way corner of the country, and there was no other dwellings close by. You could get in and out without being noticed. It had been built a long while before by the Brandybucks for the use of guests or members of the family that wished to escape from the crowded life of Brandy Hall for a time. It was an old-fashioned countrified house, as much as like a hobbit hole as possible. It was long and low, with no upper story, and it had a roof or turf, round windows, and a round door. As they walked up the green path from the gate, no light was visible. The windows were dark and shuttered. Frodo knocked at the door, and a fatty Bolger opened it. A friendly light streamed out. They slipped in and quietly shut themselves in a light inside. They were in a wide hall with doors on either side. In front of them, in a passage ran back down the middle of the house. "Well, what do you think of it?" asked Mary, coming up to the package. "We have done our best in a short time to make it look like a home. After all, Fatty and I only got here with the last cart loaded yesterday." Frodo looked around. It did look like a home. Many of his own favorite things were Bilbo's things. They reminded him sharply of him in their new setting, were arranged as nearly as possible as they had been at Bag End. It was a pleasant, comfortable, welcoming place, and he found himself wishing that he was really coming here to settle down in a quiet retirement. It seemed unfair to put his friends to all this trouble, and he wondered again now how he was going to break the news to them that he must leave them soon, indeed at once. Yet they would have to be done that every night before they all went to bed. "It's delightful," he said with an effort. "I hardly feel that I have moved at all." The travelers hung up their cloaks and piled their packs on the floor. Mary led them down the passage and threw open a door at the far end. Fairlight came out in a puff of steam. "A bath!" cried Pippin. "Oh, blessed Meriadoc!" "Which order shall we go in?" said Frodo. "Eldest first or quickest first?" "You'll be the last either way, Master Peregrine." "Trust me to arrange things better than that," said Mary. "We can't begin life at Crickhollow with a quarrel over baths. In that room there are 3 tubs and a copper full of boiling water. There are also towels and mats and soap. Get inside and be quick." Mary and Fatty went into the kitchen on the other side of the passage and busied themselves with the final preparations for a late supper. Snatches of the competing songs came from the bathroom mixed with the sound of splashing and wallowing. The voice of Pippin was suddenly lifted up above the others in one of Bilbo's favorite bathing songs. Bath song. "Sing hey for the bath at close of day that washes the weary mud away. Alone is he that will not sing away. Oh, water hot is a noble thing. Oh, sweet is the sound of falling rain, and the brook that leaps from hill to plain. But better rain or rippling streams is water hot that smokes and steams. Oh, water could we may pour at need, down a thirsty throat and be glad indeed. But better at beer if we drink we lack, and water hot pour down the back. Oh, water fair that leaps on high is a fountain white beneath the sky. Hut never did fountain sound so sweet as splashing hot water with my feet." There was a terrific splash and a shout of a whoa from Frodo. It appeared that a lot of Pippin's bath was imitated a fountain and leaped on high. Mary went to the door. "What about supper and beer in the throat?" he called. Frodo came out drying his hair. "There is so much water in the air that I'm coming into the kitchen to finish," he said. "Locke," said Mary, looking in. "The stone floor was swimming. You ought to mop all that before you get anything to eat." "Peregrine," he said, "hurry up, or we shan't wait for you." They had supper in the kitchen, on a table near the fire. "I suppose you 3 won't want mushrooms again?" said Fredegar, without much hope. "Yes, we shall," cried Pippin. "They're all mine," said Frodo. "Given to me by Mr. Maggot, a queen among farmers' wives. Take your greedy hands away, and I'll serve them."
You run this motherfucker. They can't stop you on a fucking Tuesday. How they gonna stop you? How the fuck are they gonna gonna stop you. Get up off the fucking couch. Look at yourself in the mirror and just spit at the mirror. Fuck you, cocksucker. I'm going out there to get what's belonged to me.
That was day 52 of reading every single day for 30 minutes for the rest of my life. We're at the top of page 112. Top of page 112. See y'all in day 53.